Talk time. The skeptical reasoning. Philosophically speaking, skeptical reasoning doesn't make sense to me for a number of reasons. Although I think that skepticism is a useful tool, I think that it has a certain place and should only be used at certain times. People wield it as if it is all that it is to their life, but one cannot really live this way. We cannot be skeptical when somebody tells us that they're our friend or that they care for us. We have to kind of just take their word for it. It is only if they behave in a way that suggests that this was a lie that we know that they're not true. In the same way, when I talk about God, people ask me for evidence. But yet when I produce it, they say it is not enough, or it is not good enough. It was not the evidence that they were looking for, or the evidence itself is somehow flawed. But whatever their objection is, they cling to that objection, hoping that I will go away and leave them alone. Well, if that is what they want, then they are certainly free to leave me alone. But if their skepticism cannot explain itself, why do they hold on to it? I presented a video where I said I was skeptical about skepticism. Now, can the truth be known at all? The agnostic suggests no. The agnostic says, no, really, truth cannot be known. We don't know whether or not anything is real or not real. And until we find out, I don't know. Forget about it. We're done. Well, I think that this falls apart. Because if it's true, how do you know that you can't know? If you cannot know, then you do not know. And if you do not know, then you didn't know. You're done. End of story. It's a good and interesting philosophy to study, certainly. But it's not a good or interesting philosophy to follow, in my opinion. One would not say to a girl or a guy that one was interested in, to the question of, do you love me? I don't know. Because you cannot apply this same philosophy everywhere in your life, I submit that you leave it alone and get rid of it and find a new philosophy. When I ask about God, the atheist will say, I affirm that there is no such thing. Or, there is not enough proof. It's a belief in no God. It is not a belief. It is a lack of one. They will define themselves in all sorts of different ways, and it is quite confusing, but regardless of however they want to define themselves, they pretty much agree that God doesn't exist. Because you can explain things without God. They have tried very hard to do this. What is interesting is they will look to science for all the answers. But they have told science what science was allowed to do, and what science was allowed to study. And indeed, whenever somebody that is a scientist tries to suggest something else, they immediately discount it as bad science. Intelligent design is being told that it is not a science. Well, who is saying this? I suggest that it is probably the atheists that are saying it strongest of all. They are telling scientists that is not really science. That is up for the philosophers. Leave it to them. Leave it alone. Perhaps if you study it, you'll find it to be true, and that's something that I cannot stand. Let it be. It's not science. Why then look to that science for the answer? If you've told the philosophers that it is their job to study God, then ask them the question, not scientists. If your answer is, well, the philosophers can't be trusted either, then why did you give them that job in the first place? You see, I don't think that these worldviews make sense. They fall apart, and rather quickly. But people cling to them anyways. I think that they cling to them for a number of reasons. Chief among them, I think that they cling to them for an emotional reason. They don't like the idea of somebody in charge. They might cling to it because they see a world of suffering and do not understand how God could permit such a thing. But that is easily explained. They might cling to it because, in their view, they have claimed that there is no proof to the contrary. But again, I reference the fact that there is proof, and that Christianity is very welcome to offering and explaining the proof that it has. But the skeptic will say, no, it is not true. Here I must quote scripture. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Indeed, I think we are very foolish if we make this statement. Not because we haven't studied, but because we have studied the wrong things and for the wrong reasons. The atheist studies science, which is great, and wonderful. But then the atheist says that science somehow does away with God, when it does not. Science is actually proving the Bible to be more and more true every single day. We just don't want to see it. The Big Bang was always there in the very beginning. We just didn't see it before. Many truths about science are already contained in the scriptures, things that people could not have known and would not have known in those days. But we must dismiss those things. They got rather lucky in believing that the world was round. That was not the prevalent thought of the day. There's additional science to be found in the scriptures, but I will not do your homework for you. You must find it yourself. I would not be a very good teacher if I did all the homework for you. I do not suggest that I am the best teacher. There are better ones available. I'm at best a general knowledge level person. I can direct you to better ones. If you dismiss those better ones, you are lost. I am very willing, and theologians and philosophers and scholars before me have put effort and studied other theologies. Debates are held to decide who is right and who is wrong. I have listened to many of these debates. But listening to the atheist and agnostic and even skeptic, I find no reason to believe what they believe. They simply say it is true because it is true, there you go. But what sources do they point to? They point to science, but yet say science isn't allowed to talk about philosophy. Yet their ideas are based in philosophy. This makes no sense to me. At the end of the day, I want and a desire to understand those that are on the other side of the coin, and I endeavor to do so. Indeed, I find myself on the other side of the coin quite often. But if you ask yourself how deep does your skepticism run, and you answer very deep indeed, I suggest you leave it behind. It's doing you no good. I'm skeptical about a number of things, but when it does me no good, I leave it aside, and I look at that thing closer, and I study it in detail. Sometimes we just have to give up our skepticism and leave it alone and study the thing that we were being skeptical about. If we find there are truths in it, or if we find it is all true, or that it is so impossible it must be true, then I suggest we accept it. What do I mean by impossible? I mean impossible in regards to impossibly correct. It is so correct that it must be true. If we remain skeptical, we are lost. This is my thoughts on it. If you cannot apply your philosophy to all of your life, do away with it. This will irritate many viewers. I expect to receive many comments saying that you just don't understand skepticism enough, or you just don't understand the atheist agnostic viewpoint well enough. You have not offered any evidence in the contrary. I suggest you cannot offer evidence yourself for your own belief system. Your beliefs are rooted in philosophy. Fine. Explain me the philosophy behind it. If your system is rooted in science, can you use science for every aspect of your life? If not, it is not good for you to follow. At least not for all of your life. Then why only apply it to parts of your life and not others? My philosophy is able to cover every aspect of my life. If you can do the same, then you have a good philosophy. If not, you have a bad one. If you believe you have a good philosophy, yet you only have certain aspects of your life covered by a philosophy, and then must change philosophies to cover the rest, then your philosophy is not an all-encompassing one and should be done away with. My philosophy encompasses all my life and all my understanding, and influences me greatly in what I understand and how I know that I can understand it all. It gives a full account and explanation of everything. If yours cannot, I suggest you discount it, dismiss it, and do away with it immediately. This is all I have for you. Until next time, peace out.